Hey, folks, it's Dr. Greta. How are you? Thanks for joining us today. So, you know that a kind of analogy where people would say, look at your checkbook, or I guess these days, maybe your online statement, your bank statement, and it will tell you all about your life and your priorities. It's a way to kind of really identify what's going on in like what your life in your life, and more importantly what you prioritize, whether or not you are cognizant of that. And so today we're talking a little bit about that same kind of thing when it comes to our golf. So, for the most part, all of us want to realize some improvement if we enjoy the game. Of course, there's always room to improve. No one's ever get become masters this game. Even if we become highly skilled, we never really master it. But for those of us oftentimes kind of in the early stages of our journey, we don't really understand the gravity of that statement that we have to make time for golf. Now, most of us, we know that if we want something in our lives, we have to make time for it. But golf seems to be a little bit different, and people have the best of intentions. So let me be clear when I speak about this. They're fully intentional. They've signed up for their program. They've purchased their clubs. They've got the clothes. Maybe they've got the club membership, all the things, right? But it never happens. Golf and the ability to play and improve and hit the shots that you want to hit, at least on occasion, it requires a bit of work. And so today, what I want to invite you to think about is a way to develop the skill and the habit of getting golf practice and training on your calendar. You may use it in other areas of your life, particularly in business or something like that, but it's called calendar blocking. It's nothing new, it's nothing fancy, but it works. It works very well. And so it's one of those skills and one of those tools, if you will, that many of us might want to consider bringing from the business or the family planning side of our lives into our golf sides, because here it is, folks. It's very straightforward and simple. If you do not make time for your golf, it won't happen. It won't improve. And that's when we run into those frustrations, and we have this kind of misalignment of our expectations with our abilities, right? We have to kind of work on those things so that we can achieve whatever it is we want to achieve again. And we're not saying that you're interested in getting ready for the tour, maybe not, but if you're going through the effort and you have the interest in the sport, I'm simply saying here today that we're going to learn a little bit more about how we can be much more intentional and systematic about preparing ourselves and getting the practice in, getting those reps in. Okay. So, as many people who know that have been on the lesson tee with me, that I work with me in my long-term coaching programs, they know that I always say intention, attention, right? If you are intentional about something, then you've got to give it some attention, right? If you're giving something your attention, that probably means you're a little bit intentional about it. So they go hand in hand. So that's what we're talking about here. So we're kind of on, again, I mentioned we're talking about this one very simple concept today, and we call it calendar blocking. What is calendar blocking? Calendar blocking is very simple. It is literally that. Sounds right. Taking your calendar, whether that is, you still old school and you use a written one or the digital version. But on there, you're going to be very specific about putting it on your calendar, right? Putting it on the appointment schedule. Very simple. Let me tell you what it is not. What calendar blocking is not, it doesn't look like this. Well, today is Tuesday, so I'm going to probably plan to practice. Or sometime next week I'm going to get out there and work on my putting. That is not planning. That is not certainly not calendar blocking, right? Calendar blocking looks more like this as I plan my weeks, because often I do a lot of my sketching out of my week on Sunday. That's when kind of my day to do that in the afternoon, and kind of have my own little routine there. And that would look like this. Okay, so based on my work schedule, my business schedule, some other things, my teaching schedule, all those things, This is when I have time. This is when it might make sense for me to practice. I'll already be at the course because I'm teaching that day. This, that type of thing. Okay, well maybe from 2 to 2:45, I'm going to work on my long distance putting. That is calendar blocking. And oh, once I've made that, identified the time and the day, I've put it on the calendar. Just like I would put on there, I'm recording a podcast at 1 p.m. on Thursday. Just like I would say, hey, I'm going to meet my friend John for lunch on Friday. All of those things at 2 o'clock. All of those things, just like that, I'm going to be that specific about it because here's how it works. Again, we can say all we want. I'm going to just go and I'm going to practice next week. It tends not to happen. Now, down the road, maybe it will as golf becomes a greater priority in your life. But if right now your intention is to get engaged in golf and you have the interest to do that, you're going to have to work it into your life. And that's what calendar blocking is all about. Okay. Now, specifically, I want you to know this. It's not just something we want to do. All of us, we're going to hit some balls and practice and do those types of things, as many people would say. I wouldn't say that, but that's how many people describe their practices, right? Here's what I want you to know. Blocking, calendar blocking, plus specific objective-based training is how you're going to get results. So that sounds like a mouthful. Let me just say that again. Blocking plus objective-based training equals results. Okay. So we've talked about the calendar blocking. What do I mean when I say objective-based training? I know that sounds like this big, long, fancy term. No, what I'm simply saying is be very specific about what you're going to practice and for how long. What's the reason for the practice? The very generic general statement like, I just want to get better, is not really going to move the needle, despite what many people think. You have to have specificity. So, in the example that I used a few minutes ago, if I was talking about myself and scheduling a practice, notice I said in there I was going to practice long range putting for 45 minutes or whatever the case may be. I didn't say I'm just going to practice putting. I have a very specific objective, which allows me to, one, make sure that I have all the right equipment with me, to practice, be in the place where I need to be to get proper practice. And three, always be focused, right? Because it's not about how long you practice most often. It's about how thoroughly and how intentionally, again, attention, right? That's where many of us get hung up and not making making the needle move in our practicing. We're just kind of out there doing some things thinking that this is going to move the needle. And that's not to say that just kind of it won't help a bit. But if you're really ready to move the needle and you're like, hey, I've been shooting, averaging 110 for the past 2 or 3 years, and that's great, but I'm ready to see some changes. You're going to have to get more intentional about this, right? We know in life, if we want different results, we have to do some things differently. And so we know that this blocking and objective based training really works. We use it all the time. It's one of the pillars of my coaching program, Go Getter Golf. When I'm working with players, this is a non-negotiable, and that's how we see results. You've got to know what you're going to work on because this is evidence-based, right? That's how we're going to collect data. When you know specifically what you've been working on, that's how you can determine if there's been progress. If you're just kind of random, right, you have no basis of comparison and you have no proof or receipts, as some people would say, right? So that's what it's really all about. Now, it's so important that you begin thinking that way if really what you want to do is to improve, whether you're a beginner or you're kind of somewhere along that continuum and you're ready to move the needle, whether that's score wise, performance wise, you want to increase your own satisfaction, whatever the case may be, right? This is golf on your terms, right? So if you are interested in learning more about like that, you need to think about how can I go about that? But we're happy to talk to you. One-on-one coaching, our program, we talk about this all the time. Again, I cannot emphasize enough why calendar blocking is so important and why I felt it important to talk to you about that because it's one of those things that's going to make a difference for you. Move the needle. If you talk to most golfers that you see that are capable of producing good scores, they will tell you they're very specific and they've probably been that way for some time in their practicing and their training. It doesn't mean that we're talking about these massive hours. In fact, efficiency and the use of technology, which is what we do all the time working with clients, is that they're penciling in 15, 20 minutes here and there when sometimes they're longer blocks, but they know that if you have an objective, if you have a plan, you can make a difference in 15 or 20 minutes of practicing. We use, again, in our program, we use we're a Blast Golf Academy, and that data shows you all you need to know. So whether you're close by your coach or far away, you can make it work with that data. So again, if you're interested in learning more, just check us out at Go Getter Golf. You'll see the link there. It's kind of long, but the link is right there. But the big takeaway for today is I want you to understand what calendar blocking is, how it can fuel and skyrocket your performance, and it's a great habit to develop anywhere in life, but particularly in golf if you are trying to figure out how to make better use of your time to get better, and you're trying to figure out how do I figure golf into my already very busy schedule. It's not going to be there. It's like anything else. We're going to have to make the time for it. We're going to have to choose to use some of our time to make the most of practice. So I hope that's helpful, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.